Jazz, how can someone crack that very first job interview call?
Great question. Let's take a little step back for a moment first, and let's say that by getting that first call, you've probably put in a good application. You've understood how your skills have matched the role. You haven't just thrown random applications against the wall in desperation, which is very easy to do. You have targeted things that you can speak to or you have experience with that are on the job description or in the universe of this company that you've applied to. Or you can work with a good recruiter who will isolate and understand your experience and skills for you via a conversation and use those to market your profile to their client effectively, which lands you getting that very first call. So those are things that I think are really key to getting that call. Customizing your resume for each opportunity is also very important. If you're a software engineer who has skills in multiple programming languages because you're a polyglot, maybe you're really good at Java, maybe you've done work in Ruby or Python or whatever as well, but the company you're applying to, they're on a Java stack, right? So you're not going to just churn the same resume out to a company with a Ruby on Rails stack as one with a Java stack. You're going to reorder your technologies to line up with the ones most relevant to that role and company stack first, and so on and so forth. That's one thing. Some companies don't require a cover letter. Some companies ask you for a cover letter in application. If you do have a cover letter, you don't want to put your life story in there. You want to lay out one or two sentences at the beginning just to sort of explain why you believe you're fit for the role. Maybe a middle paragraph of a few sentences talking about things you've specifically done or skills you specifically have that they're looking for because they're on the job description and you have them. And then just a quick sentence to sort of say thank you for your consideration. That's generally it. And I think those are things that are really key in getting an interview, but not just getting that first interview, but getting that interview and having a sense of confidence that you're going to be able to speak to the things that these people are looking for. Some people slip through the net and that first interview where it should be just a nicer relaxed talking about your skills and experience turns into something where you realize that I shouldn't even be in process here because perhaps it's not the greatest fit. Because sometimes recruiters make mistakes as well as candidates in, greenlighting interviews that perhaps they shouldn't as well. So in order to avoid those kind of situations, make sure that your skills and experience are aligned with the role. Make sure that you are able to put your best foot forward as a result.
Yeah, and this first interview call sometimes is like a intro with the HR. So what can maybe people expect for a very first interview call in North America?
Okay, great question. It's funny, when I first meet a candidate, not the first time I meet them, the first time I'm screening a candidate, having them tell me about their career and experience, I tell them, I'm not interviewing you, but use this as perhaps a practice for when you do have that intro call with a gatekeeper, with an HR person, because they're going to ask you very similar things to what I'm about to ask you, namely, tell me about your career. I tell people to practice this speech. It's really important. I mean, if you're a founder of a startup, you have your pitch learned off by heart and practiced in the mirror just in case you meet an investor in an elevator or at a conference or whatever, so that you can put your best foot forward and sound natural in talking about what your company does, why it's unique, why people should invest, why it's exciting, etc. An actor preparing a monologue would have a similar kind of practice that I would recommend to candidates in nailing this call as well. Look in a mirror, know your lines, but practice talking about them in a natural way so it doesn't sound rehearsed or robotic. And practice does make perfect. Do it 5-10 times. It's really important you're pitching yourself in order to get yourself through the gatekeeper so that you can showcase your technical skills in a more comfortable arena for many, certainly for many software engineers where there is a sort of a leaning towards introversion. So practice speaking about your career in an engaging way. Practice getting a solid detailed summary explained within 10 or 15 minutes. That's going to cover, where you've worked. If the company's not a household name, you're going to intro, I worked at company X for the first 3 years of my career. They are an e-commerce company, not very well known here, but where I'm from, They are like the Shopify of India or the Philippines or what have you. It's a company of around 2,000 people, so it's pretty large. My role in that company was I joined as a junior software developer. I eventually became a senior developer working on the full stack. The technology stack started off being, mostly PHP, Laravel, with some sort of Node.js in the stack as well, but we broke down all those monoliths and put them into microservices. I had a team of 6 people that I worked in. I started off as the most junior. When I left, I was one of the most senior. It was a cross-functional team that had not only software engineers, but also testers and a DevOps person to help us with deployment, and also a product manager. And then speak about any of your specific achievements, technical accomplishments, or things you're proud of having done while you're there. It could be saving the company money. It could be upping your skills so that you have an array of programming languages under your belt because of the nature of the role there. It could be one of many things, but you want to isolate and practice talking about those. Go on to the next company. Similar layout so the recruiter can get context as to the size of the company, your role there, what you did. It's pretty simple, and the key is to make it sound natural, that you haven't overly rehearsed it, and practice will make you do that.
That's great.
Any leadership or mentorship experience you gained while you were there, even if you weren't officially in a leadership capacity and you were an individual contributor, but maybe you took a junior under your belt and helped mentor them. Maybe that was common practice where you worked as well, but leadership skills, technical skills, soft skills in general, on top of the technical skills. I think laying all those out for each opportunity in a concise and engaging way, and then talk about the next one and the next one, and practice squeezing that into 10 or 15 minutes, and be prepared for someone interrupting you and asking you about what you've just said as well, that it's not going to be a 15 minutes uninterrupted monologue. It might turn into a conversation, so you understand the foundation elements of the facts that you want this person to know about what you've done. I think those are important as well.
That's fantastic. My friends, if you want to learn some more amazing advice for job interviews from a recruiter, stay tuned. Hey friends, welcome to Chine Coaching. I'm Rob. At Chine Coaching, we're all about helping you to thrive and succeed in your cross-cultural journey, especially when it comes to landing great jobs abroad here in North America. Today we're doing a deep dive on job interviews, how to prepare, what to say, what not to say, how to really connect and convince recruiters. We've got a great guest today. Jaz, please introduce yourself.
Thanks, Rob. My name is Jaz Guram. I am a tech recruiter. I'm located just outside Toronto, Canada, on the eastern suburbs in a city called Ajax. I come with over 10 years of technical recruitment experience, based here in Canada, but for companies located both here in Canada as well as the US. I've been in Canada for 14 years. I'm originally from Ireland. I did work for 6 years in Japan prior to coming to Canada, so I've been around, and I have a fair bit of cultural context as well. I'm currently the lead technical recruiter for Syndesus, a PEO company that helps US companies with HR scenarios, including recruitment, helps US companies to establish employment presence in Canada.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think your background is so fitting for what we're talking about and for our Chine Coaching audience. And with our next question, I want to go to a very important and kind of elusive topic, but how do people answer the tell me about yourself question? I've heard a lot of good and bad advice on this. I know maybe in other parts of the world, they don't really talk about this in an interview. So yeah, how can you help guide people in the tell me about yourself part of an interview here in North America?
Okay, so when a interviewer, usually an HR person or a gatekeeper, tells you in that very first interview that they want you to tell them about yourself, really what they're looking for is mostly a good detailed summary of your career. They're gauging your personality. Are you going to be a fit with the general vibe of the people in this company? That's one thing they're assessing, consciously or subconsciously. They're also going to be trying to learn the types of environments or organizations that you've worked and thrived in, whether that be a startup or a scale up or a large enterprise level company or all of the above. And like the previous segment where I explained that, rehearsing and practicing the pitch on yourself, it's the same thing for this question as well. You want to literally sit down and practice like you're practicing for a role in a play or for a big presentation. Talk about the companies where you've worked. That includes their location, industry, size of the company, the products or services they develop, the culture of that company as well. You talk about your role there specifically, your role at first when you first joined the company, then how you developed your career within that company, either getting promoted or adding skills or whatever. Want to talk about the tech stack of that company, what you built and maintained with the tech there, what you learned from that, how you added more technical strings to your bow, or how you upskilled, and as well as any leadership or initiative experience that you have within that company, either in official or unofficial capacity to speak of as well. Your achievements there. What tech problems did you help solve? Did you help solve solo or as part of a team? Were you ever recognized for good effort? And did you mentor or coach anyone there, and so on? These are the kind of things that an interviewer wants to know. It's up to you to cherry pick the ones from your experience prior to that interview and practice speaking about those. And by cherry pick, I mean you've applied for this company, so you know what the tech stack is probably from the job description. It should match your skill set. You're going to identify, is this a startup? Well, I've worked in startups, so I'm definitely going to mention that I'm used to working in the startup culture. I'm used to dealing with the ambiguity and quick agility of pivoting that a startup has, that perhaps in an enterprise level job where you're stepping into an already humming machine, the sort of day-to-day can be quite different. If it's an enterprise level company and you have that experience, you'll do the same. You'll mention how you understand what it means to work in a big company as an individual contributor, and so on and so forth as well. And you're going to practice, talking about yourself with each interviewer in a slightly different way, because you're going to be representing the things about you and your career and skill set that are applicable to that job. I wouldn't recommend having just one cover letter, one resume, one 15-minute spiel about yourself in these tell me about yourself kind of scenarios. You do have to practice and customize, and very importantly, come across as engaging and not having overly rehearsed. Be prepared for being interrupted, asked a question that's going to divert you from what you practiced you were going to say, and so on as well. Use the people around you, your family, your friends, to sort of bounce off and practice your answer on, and get their feedback and have them interject and ask you a few questions as well. Yeah, it's something that you can train and practice, just like you train yourself to juggle or kick a soccer ball or whatever. It's something that's definitely coachable, trainable, and we can coach and train ourselves to do it as well as have someone else do it for us.
That's great. Yeah, and I think too, just practice makes perfect. The more you can practice, do mock interviews, tell that story to your friends, the better equipped you're going to be to communicate that clearly to a recruiter. Jaz, one thing that I've noticed in helping students in their job search journeys is there's a disconnect sometimes that exists. There's what recruiters want, what recruiters are looking for, versus maybe what candidates, how they prepare and what they give during interview, and they're not aligning. They're going in different directions. So maybe what are some ways you've seen that happen, and how can maybe people be more aligned and prepare for really what a recruiter wants in these job interviews here in North America?
Recruiters are primarily looking for, at least initially in that interview, is a concise and lucid explanation of your experience coming from you. They're gauging if you're speaking with passion and an engaged way about your career and experience. Are you putting forward the information that is really relevant for the role? I.e., have you looked at the job description? Have you really looked at it and tried to figure out what exactly is being done here and with what tech? Have you researched the company on LinkedIn and elsewhere? Have you read the about page of that company to understand what their mission statement is, or what it might be? It's very easy to detect when a candidate has come in with that preparation done versus not having had any of that preparation done. It's quite stark. So I think that's the very first thing, is this person coming in engaged with not just getting a job and wanting a job, but engaged with us, because they really, these days particularly, companies want people who are going to step in and absorb the culture and understand what the MO is of that company in terms of their culture, their mission, how they develop things, and so on and so forth. And understand what the recruiter's role is as well. Show the recruiter a little bit of empathy. They want you to get this role. They want to make that placement. They want
Hmm.
to, put somebody in the role who the hiring manager is happy with and who aligns with as many of the things that they were looking for as possible. So help the recruiter to deliver what they're asking of you. And like I mentioned, having that preparation done and understanding what the role is as much as possible coming in, and what the company is like, is definitely a really good way to get off on a really solid foot there.
Yeah, that's great. What one thing that stands out to me is what you haven't said is 4.0 GPA, number of certifications. I think most, especially current students, really focus on the numbers and the technical skills, which you need to have those minimums of qualification. But what I'm hearing you talk about is soft skills, preparation, research, communication, presentation, relatability. And while students are preparing in one direction with the technical skills, they're missing out on the soft skills, which is really going to connect with recruiters and make you stand out and help them to see that you're the right fit. Does that make sense?
It totally does. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
It really is a double-edged sword.
Mm-hmm.
I'm making the assumption that if you're speaking to a recruiter, they have looked at your resume and they understand enough about you technically to want to have a conversation with you. So I sort of made that assumption going into that without going into that side of
Exactly.
things. But obviously, it's very important to have that down and have the ability to talk about that at length and in detail if the recruiter asks you about it.
Mm-hmm.
If it's on your resume, you should be able to do that. There shouldn't be things on your resume that are going to catch you out if the recruiter
Mm-hmm.
asks you to expand on them. So if there is anything like that in your resume, and I'm not talking about people lying on resumes or putting things dishonestly, but people tend to put every little thing on their resume if they've touched upon it, because they think it's going to help them land a job. But what if you've only done a short course on it 5 years ago, but you've put it on your resume as a skill, and then the
Mm-hmm.
recruiter asks you about that? You're going to be in a position where you're not putting your best foot forward because you're stammering about it, or you just say, to be
Mm-hmm.
honest with you, I haven't really had much exposure to that. So, the assumption I made prior to answering that was that you have a good resume with your technical skills and all the things we talked about in our other conversation, resumes, taken into consideration. The soft skills are huge. I mean, we're talking about these first calls with HR people or TA
Mm-hmm.
people, or sometimes it is a hiring manager, the technical person who does the first interview, but it is
Mm-hmm.
more focused around your communication, your fit compatibility with the culture of the company or with the nature of the team, with how you talk about tech, and how you talk about your career and your passion towards it, and how you upskill yourself. The soft skills are really, really crucial. It's really crucial to explain your soft skills well, and to demonstrate the fact that you have them via really solid comms and in a sort of a nice, engaging, and relaxed way too.
Yeah, definitely. My friends, if you are learning a lot, gaining some value, hit that like button to say cheers and thanks to Jaz. I know I'm really enjoying this. This has been super helpful. And our chai question for you, our audience, is how would you describe job interviews in America and Canada? So would love to hear your thoughts. What is your kind of takeaway on what job interviews are like in North America, especially compared to maybe your home country, or if you're from a different culture? Let's I'd love to see what that's like. Tell us in the comments what's kind of your view, your perspective on what job interviews are like, what is emphasized, what's really helped you guys out in your job interviews as well. Okay, now this is going to be a fun one, Jaz, and I think another kind of obstacle that people don't really know how to deal with. But how can people avoid being ghosted by recruiters? Sometimes people work really hard and then it's just dead silent, and people say, what do I do? So what would be your advice for people to not get ghosted, or what to do if they haven't heard from a recruiter in a long time?
Yeah, that's something that I see a lot on LinkedIn. People talking about how they've been ghosted. I think a lot of it happens. And we sort of have to identify straight off the bat that there are some recruiters who just aren't really great at their job, and perhaps they don't have the relevant level of professionalism or empathy, and as a result they don't really care about sort of following up with people or putting people's minds at ease. But I think that that's a smaller percentage of recruiters than often people believe. I think that there's a way to avoid being ghosted accidentally by recruiters. I certainly tell my candidates after the first time I've sort of screened them, I say, look, I'll never intentionally ghost you. If I don't reply to an email that you send me, please, within a couple of days or an appropriate amount of time, follow it up and say, hey, I didn't hear back from you. And usually then I'll respond, because sometimes, recruiters sometimes have so many candidates in play for multiple jobs. If they're an agency, you're working perhaps 8 or 9 different companies, 10, 12 jobs. And if you think the amount of candidates you have for each of those, it sometimes can be easy for someone to fall between the cracks, particularly if the comms coming their way from the candidates are a little nebulous or vague. If I was a candidate, I would set comms expectations early. Ask the recruiter how long you should expect to wait for a response to an email or to an application or whatever. Ask the recruiter if it's okay to check in periodically for an update. Get the recruiter themselves to commit to that as well. Be someone who checks in to let your recruiter know if you're going to miss a call. So, if the more professional you are in dealing with the recruiter that you're working with, the chances are that they're going to sort of mirror that professionalism. The likelihood that they're going to mirror that professionalism is higher. Unfortunately, sometimes, it does happen, and you are going to get ghosted by a recruiter. Sometimes I get ghosted by candidates as well. So it does work two ways. But look, to avoid it, like I said, set those comms expectations early. Get the confirmation from the recruiter themselves as to when to expect a response from them. It's okay to tell your recruiter as well, because a lot of recruiters don't realize this. It took me a while as well to check in with a candidate and say there is no update is often a good update, right? Say, look, I haven't forgotten about you. Things have slowed down here, or the hiring manager has decided to bring a couple more candidates into the pipeline, so things have slowed down. Or even just to check in and say, I haven't heard from the hiring manager yet. I'll check in whenever I hear anything. Feel free to check in with me in a week or whatever. I tell candidates, if you haven't heard from me in a couple of weeks, feel free to drop me a quick note just to ask if I have any update on any jobs for them, or any update on their profile. Speaking as an agency recruiter here, obviously, with that sort of instruction, I'd say check in. It can be one line, hey Jaz, any update for me? I tell them I'll respond to you within a couple of days of receiving that email with a detailed update as to where things are, if I have any leads, if I've got a job coming up that might be a fit for them. Or sometimes I say my update might be, there is no update, check in again in 2 weeks. But we will iterate this communication process, until you find something elsewhere or we have something to work on together. I think letting the recruiter know that you're into that sort of communication relationship, and sort of drawing the ground rules of communication early, it'll put your mind at ease with regard to being ghosted as well. And look, if you do all that and the recruiter commits to it and you still get ghosted, well then, you've learned a lesson that recruiter perhaps isn't someone that you can put a lot of faith in going forward.
But expectations, clear communication, so important. What's also important is just, it's okay to get help in your job search journey. Don't think it's all got to be up to you. You don't have to be alone, especially in the economy that we're in right now, in the competitiveness of the tech world. And so, Jaz, tell us just real briefly, what is Syndesus and how can they help our friends in landing a job here in North America?
Yeah, so Syndesus is a PEO organization with the recruitment as one of our services. By PEO, I mean we're a professional employer organization, i.e., we can act as the registered employer in Canada for a company who is perhaps in the US, for example, who doesn't have a Canadian business entity. We have many clients in that capacity. They want to build engineering teams in Canada before they get a Canadian business entity. They want to send their Indian H-1B holding employee to Canada to get into the sort of immigration system here and get their PR here, because maybe their work permit isn't being renewed in the US, or they've just been told that, oh, you're Indian, you're not going to get a green card for 25 years, and they do want that stability. That's another option for companies to send people to across border to Canada. But we do also tech recruitment for clients in both US and Canadian clients here as well. Do check out our website, Syndesus, as well as our sister website, Path to Canada. Path to Canada being the global recruitment division of Syndesus, where we do help candidates get work permits, put them on the pathway towards PR, while also helping them find a tech job that matches their skill set here in Canada.
I love it. Yeah, you guys provide some amazing services and have helped people in some really tough situations pivot and find some great new pathways, especially not to have to go back to their home country if they don't want to do that, but continue in their careers abroad and using those skills. So yeah, we'll have the link. Check out Syndesus for those opportunities. And Jaz and I have also made another video about resumes, the worst things you can do for your resume, how to craft and build a really standout resume. Jaz has so much experience with resumes, so check that as well. We got a link to that. You don't want to miss that to get that resume to get you that job interview. So Jaz, this has been incredible. Thank you so much for sharing your experience on this.
Thanks, Rob. It was great. Thank you.
Yeah, my friends, connect with us online on social media like LinkedIn, Instagram. Make sure you're subscribed to our Chine Coaching e-newsletter as well for other great resources and tips. We love having y'all be part of our community. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Cheers, everyone.